it's really sad that Hollywood is so unbelievably obsessed with youth, because I know I'm getting better and better as I get older. And because you get more and more grounded as a person when you get older, if you're working on yourself, which I am. And so I know that when I'm even older, I'll be even better.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Betsey Brown is an actor. I sat down with her in her home in New York City to talk about the work.
I want to begin with what I think is a little bit of a peek in on what I think is special about you, or what I think is the secret to why I'm very impressed with your work. And you said this to somebody asked you what you draw upon in these emotional scenes that you do. And you said, the moment. You draw upon the moment, which means you have to be living extremely truthfully under these circumstances. And whatever impulses come to you in that moment, trust them 100% and run into them without fear whatsoever. Fear is going to kill your artistic voice.
Yes, I agree. It's very moving to me because, like, when you asked the question, I answered it exactly the same way I said in my head, the moment. It's like that is the only thing that we have. I mean, in life, not acting too, the only thing we have is the moment. And so I feel like you have to really channel whatever it is that's happening right now, because nothing else exists.
What is the evolution of that thinking for you, though? Was that always something that you tapped into? Or is this something that grew out of something? Can you talk about that?
That's a good question. Definitely not, because I think originally what drew me to acting was like when I became serious about it in high school. I think I don't know if I would have articulated this like connection to the moment, but it was there. There was like this childlike wonder and playfulness that I think is inherent in being younger, and also not having, much, just sort of feeling like, because when I was in high school, I really didn't have, I had just positive memories or associations with acting. So it was really easy to channel the moment, be in the moment, be present. Then in college, I went to a conservatory, and that experience put me extremely in my head. And I think to be in your head as an actor, for me, I know a lot of other actors don't feel this way, but for me, to think about it at all intellectually is a no-no. It will disconnect me from the moment and I think that has very specifically to do with my makeup. I have more insecurity about my intellect than my emotional like connection to the world. I feel like I'm like really fluid with my emotions, and then my intellect can sometimes betray me, or like I feel like I can't reach it as easily. And so acting school, college was kind of, putting all these like ideas into my head, and I was trying to wrap myself around. And also competition is huge. If you are competitive with the people around you, which I was in school, it is not going to allow you to be as truthful as a real person is, because a real person isn't thinking like, oh, am I like being a person like better than the person in my scene? Like it's just that's not ever going to be a thought. So that's big. And then I think honestly doing Dasha's movie was a huge definitely doing Assholes, which was my brother's movie, was very big. Well, hold on. Let me think for real. I definitely feel like Dasha's movie cemented this idea. Mm-hmm. And I've been sort of trying it out in more like familial, like protected zones before. Mm-hmm. But doing it with somebody but like really allowing myself to trust enough to connect to only the moment for someone I didn't know as well. Mm-hmm. That's why that feels like a big turning point for me.
Yeah.
Because everything else I was doing before was like very insular.
Mm-hmm. And was it also because that movie, The Scary of 61st, feels almost like you had to incorporate that all-in approach to some of that material?
Definitely.
Otherwise, you weren't going to be able to get to where you had to get.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. And again, like doing that on set for a director that had hired me without knowing me super well, that was the first time that had happened. Mm-hmm. For my brother's movie, Assholes, I had to do a similar. Have you seen it?
Of course.
Yeah. So that is like also a crazy movie, like with a high level of physical and emotional like elasticity. So I was already like exercising and preparing my way to get to The Scary of 61st. Also, like the first movie that I was cast out of college was by my two friends who are incredible filmmakers, Mika Vasa and Zach Strum. They had me do insane things. Not as much emotional, but more like physical. Like Dasha's movie, I have to masturbate outside in a public place. And the first movie I did out of college, I was like using my private parts as puppetry. Like I was like sort of primed immediately out the gate to like just say yes to these things.
Yeah.
So that by when we were doing the masturbating outside of Jeffrey Epstein's building, people around me were like, how are you feeling? Are you okay? Like, are you gonna what do you need? And while I really appreciate that, I was like used to it already, which I think also really helped to, I just feel and also it became, honestly, this out there stuff, it has become sort of like a challenge for me. I'm like, I have it as a part of my identity now where I'm like, no, I'll do anything on camera. I'll say yes to anything if it's good art. I'm not fucking with bad art. Like, I'm not fucking with saying yes for like whatever's sake. But if I believe in the project, I'll do whatever it takes.
And what is it? So when you're not in your head, when you're actually working with your body, because that's what you're talking about here. It's in the performances in your body, and it's not just in scenes where it's literally like you're doing bodily things, but you're performing all the time in your body. What is that preparation like? Are you always kind of constantly pulling yourself out of your head?
I think if I am working with a director who I feel trusts me, I have a really easy time staying out of my head. If I feel like a director is not trusting, it will really affect me. Thankfully, I haven't worked with a lot of directors like that. But I think when I get asked to do more and more, I probably will wind up interacting with people who don't trust as much. And then I think something that will help me is an acting teacher in college. His way of teaching acting was sort of throwing out slogans at us, which at the time I was sort of like critical of, but now I'm like, these are the things that have stuck the most. And one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot recently is Matt Bullock said, relaxation, concentration, imagination are the 3 pillars of acting. And to just remind myself, and I've been really thinking about the relaxation part, because tension in your body, in your mind, tension anywhere lowers your listening skills. I think that's the most important reason why relaxation is like huge, because you have to be a good listener to be a good actor.
Yes.
These are like getting out of your head, like staying in your body, like those are all in order to fine tune the listening. And responding so that you can respond with ease. And I find people who are tense on stage or in or on screen, it's really like selfish. I feel like it's like this like they have, I see a grip that they have on their idea of the character.
Yes.
And I can't see the character if that's what's going on. It's so much harder for me. And that's how I feel when I'm acting. If I have this like grip on what I feel should be, my body tenses up, my mind tenses up, and I'm not in the moment. So relaxation is so important. When you say prep, that's a little harder for me to articulate, but I will try. I think a huge part of my prep is dancing alone in this apartment or in holding or whatever to music that I like, because that is a thing that I do while not like as myself to like release tension. And so you need to come up with whatever you do as yourself to release the tension, whether that be dancing or meditating or whatever it is, to relax. And so, yeah, that really helped me on the last set I was on. I'm thinking about my brother's set. We shot his second feature in last July. And that required an insane amount of presence. And so I would listen to my music, dance around, but also just like look at the world and like be grateful, like appreciate the world around you, because a lot of people don't do that. And it's really important for actors to take everything in and take everything personally. So for like that character was really, she was such a clown. So I would be looking at her at like the trees and like start crying, because I was like, wow, they're so beautiful. And like that's the level of attention that I believe you have to pay as an actor.
Your teacher said 3 things: relaxation, imagination. What was the second one?
Concentration.
Okay.
Huge.
Yeah. Right. And it's funny that like a word, if I was going to write a word down that impressed me about you, it would be imagination, because I filmed an audition that you did the day I met you. And it was like something very special that you were doing there. And me and the director, Kaveh, were talking about it later, and I was like, she was constantly changing things in an imaginative way, moment to moment. You were constantly building something. You're taking the moment and building on it, and then existing in that, and then building again. Like, it's hard, it seems almost pretentious to talk about it like this, but this is what it felt like. And it doesn't matter what the other person is doing, you're going to be in the moment kind of receiving it and giving it back.
Yeah.
But when you're saying part of your thing is just looking around and appreciating, you're not doing that as your character.
No.
You're doing that as you. And you're engaging almost in an exchange kind of appreciation that is helping you to kind of just really, really get in the moment. I know we keep saying in the moment, and like it almost becomes like a cliche. You got to be in the moment.
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, I do think there's a lot of cliche in acting.
Yes.
Because it's like cliche is like truth. You know,
Right,
it's like
right,
we're afraid of the truth, so we call it cliche.
Right.
But
Right. Right. But is this what it is? Is it sort of like the appreciation is actually helping you to kind of get there?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if this is going to answer your question, but what's coming up for me right now is every role that I play, I believe, teaches me something about either the world or myself and opens up something new. So I really love that you use the word exchange, because it is an exchange, not just between me and the other cast members and the director, but between me and the role that I'm playing and the circumstances that they're in. I've been really appreciative of the recent roles that I've played because they have opened up my heart so much. Like, I have been challenged and to play roles that are really sensitive, and so my heart has gotten a lot more sensitive. Like, you know, you might be surprised to hear that I was not at all confident in my ability to cry on command. To fill the listeners in, a lot of my roles require a lot of crying. And I was basically shocked myself by stepping up to that, because that wasn't, before I was challenged to do that, that wasn't my idea of myself. I think because I was before trying so hard to cry, that's not really what you do. Yeah. You just actually have to like have an exchange and basically channel the experience that the character has. My brother and I have a meme page, an acting meme page called Actors Selectuals. And there's a bunch of memes. We've created memes that have like acting slogans. And one of them is Channel the Ancients, which feels really right for like what we're talking about, because also that has to do with, if you think, okay, I'm going to really channel the ancients right now, that's a lot of support if you really believe that.
Right.
Like, of course, you have to be somebody who really believes you can channel the ancients, which also leads into like the actor's necessity to be delusional. Yeah. But like, if you get yourself delusional enough to like say, listen, I'm channeling the ancients right now, that's a huge amount of support. And so you're not alone. You're not alone, and you will just, or at least I have found that when I really understand that I am a vessel for all of the actors that have come before me, like, that's really powerful. And that will be, you can take from like Gina Rollins, Isabelle Huppert, like all the people that you, like, for those people come up for me, Jim Carrey, like, you know, these people mean something to me. And when I really believe that I can connect with them, that's a superpower.
Yes. I believe that.
And I think maybe and I just want to touch on the imagination thing that you were talking about, like, and I will say, I think that comes from my writer's brain too. Like, I feel really lucky to not only consider myself an actor, I very, very deeply consider myself an actor director. And I think that my director brain is subtly shaping the improvs that come to me, because I'm like aware of story on a deeper level. And like, it's like, you know, I have a writing practice, so it's not scary to me to like come up to try out different improvs. And I'm more connected to my subconscious flow, because that is how I write. Like I allow myself to really trust myself to write like from brain to fingers, like not, I want to like really I really want that to be like a very like direct path, brain to fingers. And so if that's a direct path, then brain to mouth is also. Brain to mouth is a much bigger challenge for me.
Yeah.
And that's why that's a big part of why I gravitated towards acting in the first place, because I had like a word retrieval issue when I was little, which means that I just like couldn't think of very simple words. And so acting really was beautiful for me, because I was like, I know I have a lot to say, but I really hate the way I say it sometimes. And so I'm going to play characters that I already know what they're like, I've memorized what they're going to say, and I can really express myself through that. That's a huge part of my original attraction to acting. And so adding in improv, like I have in my more adult life, has been like another thing that like, that's me running into my fears as well. Which is why I'm attracted to acting and creating in general. It's a way to really run into those fears.
When I saw actors, I was like not prepared for the level of using cinema in a way where you're not afraid. Like well, let's keep that going, because it felt like there was no fear of like, this is not allowed, or this is not the way you tell a story, or you need shots to look good all the time, or you need these things to match or whatever. And the same thing's going on with the performances from both of you. So I saw that before I saw Assholes. So
cool.
So what you have going on in that movie is you're working out something, a relationship, a very important relationship to you, not just with your brother, but also a relationship you have with this character named Betsey Brown.
Yes.
And the beautiful thing about actors, and the beautiful thing about what you've shared around it, is that your brother is not just a very, very influential part of your artistic life. In ways, it's like you're also jealous of him and not afraid to talk about that. You guys seem to feed off each other in this creative way that's so beautiful, and make each other better, it feels like, right?
Yes.
I want to know, though, where that started. Here you are talking about your growth as an actor and the conservatory, and like realizing things about your own thing. Where was your brother at this same time, doing a similar thing and learning about his acting? How are you in connection with that?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, because I definitely think I've always been directly affected by him. But when I was doing high school theater at like a very good high school, academic high school, he was at professional children's school, where he was done with academics at around 12:30 p.m. and so he could like act in professional things and audition. And when I was third year in conservatory, he was the lead of like an MTV scripted show called I Just Want My Pants Back, that kind of is it's similar to Girls, like Lena Dunham's Girls won out in a way, but I loved it. So he's been consistently booking, and I really haven't. Like I really at this point have a lot of faith in my career, but that has come in my late 20s to early, like basically in the last year or so, I've like basically earned some faith in my path. But it was took a really long time to get there. And that was exactly what I was dealing with when I was writing actors. And I think a part of the fearlessness, which is something I'm dealing with right now, is like a part of that fearlessness was this idea that no one was going to see it and no one cares about. Like Peter even, his character says like, no one gives a shit about me anyway, so no one will care that I did this. And I felt that's a huge part of what makes me fearless is this idea that no one cares. So I am kind of interested how that will, I know I have to maintain the fearlessness no matter how many jobs I book, which I really am manifesting lots of jobs. I really believe that I deserve to work as an actor. And I it took me a long time to be able to say that. So I want to say that with pride and without shame. But I think I learned to act in private while he was getting a lot of outer validation. And that is a huge difference between us. Of course, actors always struggle with fear of like never getting booked again or whatever. I think even like huge ones do, but but yeah, my jealousy and admiration has shaped me. He's 4.5 years older than me, and he's like my favorite actor. So like he's also an amazing improver. Like he really taught me that it's okay to improv. Like it's okay to take charge as an actor. You don't have to be like a kind of goat who's like, you can really put your artistry into it. Yeah.
What is the experience of being directed by this person that is so important to you, that you respect so much, that you call your favorite actor?
So he wants to do a normal scene will take, I kid you not, probably 30 takes or more of each angle. Like, it's just relentless. And that is super intense, especially because it's a very interesting dynamic to have an older brother direct a younger sister in the way that he does, in the sort of dictator-like way that he does. Because I think if we were not siblings, there would be this impulse to potentially step in and be like,
stop
hey,
this
Peter,
from happening.
Yeah, stop it from happening. But because there is this real trust and extreme common interest in mind, we both, like, I am 1,000,000% all in on Peter's projects, and he's 1,000,000% all in on mine. And I am that way with any project I would do, but there's this familial bond that heightens that a little bit. So people step back from our dynamic, and it is sometimes disturbing to watch, especially because in this last movie that we did, my character was in a high stakes situation every single scene. And so that, it's like, when I was doing that movie, I felt as though I was doing 12 hours of physical and emotional exercise a day with 1 day off a week. And that, I say that with no, like, woe is me. It's like, that is the thing I want to do with my life. Like, I'm the most fulfilled when I feel I am emotionally and physically
drained out.
Yeah, like, I think of acting as like Olympics. I want it to be a full body and full feeling experience. And Peter really does make sure that that is the case. I think also probably because we both have very similar desires for that. So I'm now sitting in on a bunch of the cut. www.rachelormont.com is being cut right now. And it's interesting because, like, the like million take idea we haven't really, when watching it, we're not really like, oh, this is a bad idea, even though it's very painful. Like we kind of, there's always gold at the end of the 30 takes. We might choose like, you know, the third take sometimes, we might choose the first take sometimes, and maybe we'll choose the 30th others, but every single time there was something to learn from the many takes. Also, because I do think we wound up doing a lot, like those takes served as rehearsals too. Like we didn't do any rehearsal before we got on set. And I think some of the time, and that we were lucky enough to have a really good first AD and a really good, like, well thought of schedule that allowed us to have the rehearsal in the moment, which is not we both have decided that we might want to do rehearsals next time, because none of us have done, we haven't done a rehearsal for a movie yet. But I think I'm kind of interested in starting that, adding that into my like technique.
And do you think that there is something though, when you call it dictator, right? Is there a way that he can approach it though with you that would actually serve you better?
We talked about it. So when I say dictator, I only mean that it's a dictatorship because really there's nothing that will stop him from getting another take if he wants it.
Yeah. And that's kind of what you want from a director anyway, right?
Totally, because then you can really, it means you can really trust them when you move on.
Right. It's a leader. True leader, yeah.
Yeah. So like that I'm into. I do feel sometimes with Peter specifically, both of us, and this goes both ways, because we respect each other so much, there's sometimes not as much like care. I, as the actor, might have felt better during some of the shoot if he had been like, Betsey, you're doing like phenomenally. Like, I'm so excited about the work you're doing. Let's just do it one more time. But then, and when I would say that to him, he would be like, well, but I'll tell you that at the end, but like, you're in a really bad place right now, so you can't be like getting like positive reinforcement, because we need to like have you stay in it. So there was one scene where I was like, I can't handle your energy coming in, because he's so intense. He's just a very intense person. And so him coming in, no matter what, like whether I was supposed to be in a heightened place or not, like it was too distracting. I have too much of a point of view on this person. And since as an actor, as we've talked about, I'm like a sponge. I was getting too much of his energy, and I was like, this is actually not helping. So I had him act when he was giving me direction. I told him to like speak to me in the same voice as the other actor. Like I was like, I need you to like be the other. Might be getting too in the weeds, but I was acting with a AI computer, like a robot, who was like, this character is like, plays my best friend, and she's this really sweet girl. And so I had her, I was like, Peter, please be my best friend and talk to me like her. And that helped so much.
And so he did it.
Yeah, he did it. Because he also trusts me, and like, he knew that would work in that moment. Yeah. And we instilled that kind of sometimes communication, where I would be like, actually, it helps me more if you give me direction in this, like, as this character. And like, because like the Peter character for me is really charged, and sometimes I don't want the Peter character involved as a director.
But when you direct him, and you have said that he didn't say any of the lines that you wrote in actors.
He said few of them.
So were you trying to be a dictator back at him with that, and it just didn't work?
No.
That's not your style.
That's not my style. I'm not interested in that at all.
Yeah.
Basically, I love like, my style of directing is really listening to the other person and figuring out what it is they need. Mm-hmm. And so there was a lot of tension between me and Peter, which was helpful on that set, because my movie Actors is about our rivalry and our tension and our love. But but our love really involves a lot of friction, and specifically him like needing to, or not anymore, but I think the Actors, the movie that I was trying to make, was exploring his need to like dominate over me. And so I was very frustrated by the fact that he wasn't saying a lot of my lines, but I also was like aware that what he was giving me was phenomenal. So there were only a few moments where I felt, okay, I really need to find a way to basically trick him into saying things that I need. So like, for example, this could be, again, getting in too much into the weeds, but there's this one scene where Peter explains to an outsider what his whole persona of the film. Mm-hmm. And it was extremely important to me that we had a really, really clear moment where he is telling somebody what he is, his perception of himself. Yeah. Someone outside the family, someone who doesn't know him. I just really needed that. Yeah. For so many takes, they were just palling around. And I was like, these are funny quips, but like, Peter, you need to share this. I'm like desperate. I'm dying for you. But amazing listening to the moment, because at the 15th take, they just sort of very, very naturally got it. Wow. They naturally came to that. Yeah. Palling around. So that was him listening to the moment, knowing he needed to create a relationship with the other woman, and that it was really him trusting that we would get to where we needed to be. And so that's a moment of the filming that I will never forget, because I was feeling impatient, and that scene is like one of my favorite. He did it literally perfectly. I only have one take of him doing what I knew what was going to be in there. I knew I needed that moment, and it was the only. I just was like, okay, we can move on, because you did it perfectly. Yeah. So
and this is exciting, because you both are actors using this filmmaking muscle when you act in the other person's film.
Definitely.
And that's exciting for what we're talking about here in terms of imagination, creativity, and that story you just told. Yeah. Like him just knowing that it would be dumb for him not to say this, because, dramaturgically or whatever, it's not going to work. Yes. It has to, but he needed to get there in that way.
It's, and again, it's going back to trust. And also another word that I feel like is huge for actors is patience. I mean, that was a microcosm of how patience can really help, because you have to be patient within all the takes. Like if you're not on take one, if you don't feel you got it, you need to trust and be patient with yourself that you will get it. And then for the larger career stuff, if you are not patient, it shows. And it shows as desperation and a lack of trust and faith in yourself. And I think that was a lot of my early 20s of just being really impatient, and then it manifesting in like basically a repellent, like we call it Elsler mentality, like loser mentality. I think if you're impatient, you're like a loser, which is like the worst thing that you can be, I think. Like, you know, like you have to trust the timing of things or else.
That's really important. Yes.
Not only in acting, but in life. That's what I love about acting. Like all of this stuff, like imagination, relaxation, concentration, huge for life. Like trust, huge for life. Patience, life. Like acting is just about being the best person you can be. And like that's like someone said that to me my first ever acting school party, and I was like, again, that's so cliche, but like really it's just true.
Yes.
It's just true. And it's like the scariest, it's all scary to admit how true these things are.
That's right.
But yeah,
That's
I think being genuine is a really hard thing to do in this day and age, and you have to, as an actor, owning what you want. Like so many, you know, if you are going to be intellectual about your acting, like the first thing that you want to figure out, if you're doing your like good like homework and stuff, which I don't necessarily do, but if you are that, like the first thing that you will ask is, what does this character want? And like if like in life it's so scary to like actually ask that of yourself.
Yes.
So you have to be a really brave person in order to be an actor.
I was waiting at a location for Kaveh and the crew for the show about the show, and they got there early, which I never would have thought. And I said, why are you guys here early? And he said, because Betsey did everything on the first take. Amazing.
Aww.
His approach to directing, this is an entirely different way of doing this. And usually I'm very protective of the people that have to be forced to engage with this. And I'm one of them. I'm take 40. I'm a take 40 guy. Take 40 to 50 is when I do it. And most people are that, or they break down.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't understand, like, you're losing this person.
Yeah. Because
of the way you're forcing them to do this in such a results-oriented way. Mm-hmm. But it seems like you, and I've been around on the set, you just seem to ignore that. But I'm just wondering, in a situation like this, where it's somebody who's completely results-oriented,
yeah,
how do you adjust and give them what they need?
Good question. The hardest thing about Kaveh for me is that it's actually endearing, which is he's when I act with him, he'll be mouthing my my lines. Have you experienced that?
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like that. I'm sure that he does that every time. And so that, if you're really paying attention to the moment and the other person is mouthing your lines, that's an obstacle to get over. And often, and especially when it's like most often, since I'm a woman, he loves women to yell at him. So I have like a lot of like yelling at him. Yeah. Like, but I'm like, so you do have, so I honestly don't know how, I'm not exactly sure if I could articulate how I get over, but I do think maybe it comes from prep. Like, for example, a big part of my role in Kaveh's, the show about the show is dealing with my father's death. And that is something that is extremely upsetting to me, the idea of that.
Yeah. And
like, so for for like a day before I know I'm shooting Kaveh stuff, I will be in that reality. Because that is not something that I know for a fact that if I wasn't in that reality, I would be like a take 60 gal too. And I can't do that on, I just need to prep. And I think because I am so, by the time I get to set, I'm so in the reality that my dad is dying, and that is like actually one of the worst things that could ever happen to me and will ever happen to me. Like, it makes it easier to like kind of put aside whatever is going on with him. And also another thing about like that character that helps with maybe dealing with a less, like with a more result-oriented director, is that my character of Anne has a lot of resentment towards Kaveh, and like kind of like is like I'm able to use that and like able to be like, you know, I wouldn't say this because it doesn't make sense for the story, but I could look at him like mouthing my words and be like, oh, you're so pathetic. Like I could get that. He's even giving, by being like a somewhat difficult director, he's giving me fuel. Yeah. You have to take everything. It's like everything. Nothing is off limits when you're gathering the materials for to be affected.
I heard you say somewhere that, like, correct me if I'm wrong about this, maybe this has changed. You sometimes will look at roles that are, you know, for auditioning or something like that, and immediately making a judgment about your, like, if this is right for you, if you can do this or not, which I guess I understand. Like somebody that, you know, maybe isn't very well-rounded as an actor probably should do that kind of thing, right? But I'm curious why you do that. And if this is a good thing to do, like, why not like let someone else decide? You seem like you're, you know, we're talking, words keep coming up again, over and over again, fearless, in the moment. Like, why not use trust? Why not use every opportunity to just, well, I don't know if I can do that. That doesn't seem like something I'd be right for, but let me have someone else say that.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I love that you brought this up because it's definitely a lesson. This is a lesson I'm learning recently, because I have gotten myself into trouble by saying that exact thing. Like, I don't know if I'm right for this director who wants to cast me. I think like Kaveh, I'm like really into honesty, and sometimes it does get me into trouble. And Mia Vallet, who's one of my best friends, who's also an incredible actress, she has been saying to me a lot, like, I don't believe, she's like, basically, I think if you're a good actor, you can play any role. And so that's been seeping into my consciousness, and it's marinating. And I do think, feeling as though roles aren't right for you is giving into a fear that I don't want to give into. I want to like change that about me, change that knee-jerk reaction, because that is just fear. And lack of trust and all these things that hinder you as an actor. So yeah, I'm glad you brought it up for that reason, to sort of like in my process now, I'm feeling like, no, bring it on. I'll do it, whatever it is. That's why I think it's really sad that Hollywood is so unbelievably obsessed with youth, because I know I'm getting better and better as I get older, and because you get more and more grounded as a person when you get older, if you're working on yourself, which I am. And so I know that when I'm even older, I'll be even better, because my like instrument will be fine-tuned.
Yes.
Yeah.
Betsey Brown, you give me hope for the future.
Thank you.
And I mean that. And I want you to come on this show again, please. Please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, this was so fun.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of The Gotham, formerly IFP. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.